Hey everyone, Mia Paulus here with the Simplicity in Business and Life podcast. Today we're going to talk about minimalism, and it's something that I've always been a little bit passionate about. Probably not in the way you're thinking of. So today I want to actually talk about how to do minimalism differently and tie in simplicity to that. So let's go ahead and get started.
No, it doesn't have to be so hard. No, it doesn't have to be so hard. Business and life made simple.
All right, hello everyone. So we're going to talk about how to do minimalism differently. And if you think about the trend, I know a lot of us have probably watched some of those minimalism movies, and people are like, "Okay, how do you get your house down to just 100 items?" And sometimes I laugh at that because those that don't know, I have 7 children, and so as much as I long for that life, sometimes for a long time I used to think, "Oh, I just wish I could live in a studio apartment and just have that simple life." And so sometimes whatever you think you want your life to be, it ends up being the exact opposite. And that's what my life has been. And so I've learned to be okay with what I didn't expect it to be. And so even for me, like my brain like shuts down when things get too cluttery. But I've had to, like, with 7 kids, it's impossible. Like, you literally, I have meetings all day and I walk out and it's like, "Oh, what happened to the house?" Like it's just part of my life right now, and it's something that I've had to learn to just be okay with. And so I just want to talk about really my thoughts on minimalism and how that really ties into simplicity. And really, with the year 2020, it's interesting because it's kind of made me think of things a little bit differently. For a while though, I've always thought about, like, does something provide me value? And I've always been okay like getting rid of things that didn't really give me value. So I think that's an important process to be able to go through. And if you find you're holding on to things for not like healthy reasons, I think that's a very important thing. Like, you want to be able to have a good relationship with stuff. I think the key isn't just getting rid of stuff so you don't have to deal with it. The key is learning how to deal with it. So, like, if you think about everything in life, like, things are complicated. There's a lot out there. There's tons of knowledge. You can get overwhelmed with all this. And so I think sometimes people think the answer is just, if you get rid of everything, then you don't have to deal with it. But if we just learn to have a good relationship, kind of like food, we can't get rid of food altogether, but we have to learn to have a good relationship with it. And so same thing with stuff. So like, if something doesn't provide me value in my house, I think it's important to be able to get rid of it. But there's also things like, I love house projects. I love painting. I love decorating my home. And so, like, my whole goal isn't to have nothing on my walls and no furniture in my house. Like, that actually would make me very depressed and wouldn't actually give me any peace or have me find value in any way. And so I think it's important for us, like, we're all different though, and we have to be able to go within ourselves to figure out, like, what is it that gives me peace. And I think it's so easy now to think about, like, what the experts say or what these Netflix videos are saying, and we just, like, think it's gospel, and we just say, "This is it, this is my answer," and we just go ahead and implement it and think it's gonna, like, save our life and it's gonna be the end all be all, and then we're still unhappy. And so what I want to really get us to do is actually simplify more of our mind, create more of a minimalism in our mind where it's feeling less cluttered up here and in our mind, and not so much because the house and all that peripheral stuff just naturally happens when we're clear up here. And so I think, like, one of my favorite books, actually I have right here, it's The Rhythm of Life. And it's by Matthew Kelly, and he did a really good job talking about, like, our 4 legitimate needs and simplicity and how that all ties in with life. And we have to make sure we're taking care of our 4 legitimate needs, which is like our physical needs, our spiritual needs, our emotional needs, and our intellectual needs. And that's really how we get our house in order up in our head. And when our house is in order up in our mind, we can then be able to have our house in order in our physical space. And I think, actually, I wasn't going to do this at the end, but I actually want to do it right now to just kind of set the stage for what I want to talk about. So I just want to read a short excerpt in this book that I talked about, The Rhythm of Life. And he talks about simplicity. And I want us to start to be able to be okay with quiet. sometimes we don't know what to do when things are quiet. And I actually, in meetings, I have to be careful because like if things are quiet and there's like dead space, I feel like I have to fill it, right? And so it's important to be okay with quiet. And sometimes that's something I'm guilty of that. So I always try to reread this passage over and over again to remind myself. Okay, so here it goes. So learn to be quiet, learn to be still. These are among the most valuable lessons in our journey. We come now to the spiritual need of simplicity. Simplicity is one of the governing principles of the universe. Yet with every passing century, humanity looks to greater complexity to solve its problems and improve its life. Who among us needs a little more complexity in their lives? None of us. What our lives desperately need is the liberation of simplicity. If we learn once again to listen to the gentle voice within, we will hear it counseling us many times a day to simplify our lives. When the voices of the world propose the multiple complexities of modern living, the gentle voice within will whisper, "Why complicate your life?" Over time, we will learn to turn our backs on a multitude of opportunities in order to preserve the peace in our hearts that is born from the blessed simplicity that the world despises. Simplify, simplify, simplify your life, and you will find the inner peace that the poets and the saints of every age have coveted more than any possession. Silence, solitude, simplicity. And those are really our three great friends that I think we forget about often. And if you think about like just minimalism in general, so if you think a lot of minimalists are like, you need 100 items or less, or, and then the other extreme is like, you need lots of stuff in the hoarders, right? So you have this extremes with stuff. In either way, on either extreme, we're still focusing on stuff. And I think that's why I've never really been a big fan of minimalism, because I want all that stuff to naturally be in order based on what gives us value, what gives us peace. I think that's why it's important for us not to judge other people because we're all going to have, it's a gradient scale. We're all going to have different opinions of what gives us value. Like sometimes I go into some homes that haven't been updated in 20 years and I'm like, I can't function in this type of house. And it's not, it works for them. Like other people are fine with it. They can feel that peace and that spiritual uplifting stuff in their home. And it's just, they're okay with it. But for me, like I find joy and peace in a freshly painted wall and things being nice. Like that's just how I work. And it isn't necessarily, like I said, as long as your mind is in the right place, I think that's what truly matters. And then the stuff naturally goes away. It's kind of like with food. Again, I kind of the same analogy. Like if you just focus on trying not to eat food, you end up eating more food or it just becomes a problem. But if you focus more on your health, like your mental health, like you naturally don't emotionally eat. And so those are just kind of the analogies I was thinking about. And I thought about like just as entrepreneurs, I always like to tie this back to business. And as entrepreneurs, like it's our job to keep our mind clear and understand what it takes to do that. And I think, I didn't turn my phone off. All right. So one of the things I also want to talk about was the difference between order and elimination. Like again, order in our lives is not the same as just eliminating. I think sometimes we think we have to get rid of in order to have order, and we don't. It doesn't mean we should have excess. So again, it's a gradient scale. I talk a lot about moderation in this show. I think we are attracted to those extreme shows, right, on Netflix, and it's important though. So it kind of makes our minds go to those extremes. And I just in this show want to just bring us back to the middle, like moderation. It's okay to have things. And I think one of the things I thought about in 2020 is, when the religion that I'm a part of, we talk a lot about food storage and preparing, and it's not out of fear. It's just that we know there's things that come up, and we're all about being prepared and make sure we can take care of our family and being self-reliant for ourselves. So we're not having to really always have to, put burdens on other people if we can be prepared. And so I always knew I needed to have food storage for a year, and I never really did it. And it wasn't that I didn't know it needed to happen. It's just that I didn't intrinsically feel it. And then now that 2020 is here, right? Everybody's going and getting food storage and putting it in. And now it no longer feels like bloat or excess food storage. Like, I'm like, you know what? I see the value now in having 5 tubes of toothpaste or 100 rolls of toilet paper or, 200 cans of goods. Like, it's not, to me, like, that is actually feels simple, because if something were to happen, it actually, I would know that I was prepared and I have that peace of mind. Again, it goes back to the mind of feeling that peace. And so I just want to just tie it back again to simplicity. I've never really liked the word minimalism for that reason. And again, I obviously like the word simplicity because it's the name of my podcast. So that's kind of what I wanted to really tie it back to, is getting us back to having that simplicity within our mind and simplicity within our lives. So we all have like needs, desires, and talents. And sometimes I think we don't balance those to become the best version of ourselves. We focus a little bit too much on like pleasure and maybe the instant gratification of things. And so I think if we go back to having a balance between those needs, desires, and talents, like that is where we can find that peace and that joy and that, again, that minimalism and simplicity within our mind. So, all right. So that is really my opinions of minimalism. Never been a big fan of it. It could be because, again, I have 7 kids and I'm like, yeah, that is not going to happen. It doesn't mean I am okay getting rid of stuff, but I just know I have to be realistic. And maybe I secretly long for that kind of life, to be able to have a table and a chair. And what would life be like for that? How much more simple, I guess, would life be like with just a table and a chair? But I do know me, and I know what I find value in. Like, I love to create. I'm a visionary at heart, and so for me, like, I create all day through my business, but I like having more of a physical, different way to create. And so that's why I love my house projects and designing my house and remodeling it and things like that. So that gives me value. And so, yeah, it involves stuff, but it allows me to create in my own way. And so you just have to learn to understand yourself. And again, experts are great to get knowledge from, but again, listen to yourself, get back and be willing to have those quiet moments. So I hope that's helpful. I'd love to know your opinion of minimalism and simplicity. And also, if you, I'm getting live on all my podcast platforms, so go ahead and find your favorite podcast platform and go and find me. There's still a few that I'm not active on yet, but I will be here in the next week or so. So if you're watching this on my Facebook Live, go ahead and start going on those podcast platforms and finding me as well. So, all right, everybody, I appreciate you guys, and I will see you on Thursday.
No, it doesn't have to be so hard. No, it doesn't have to be so hard. Business and life made simple.